Cool, and we'll be getting started in just a minute. If you're joining us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, feel free to comment there if you have any questions or want to join the discussion. We'll get them into the live discussion on Zoom. And if you are joining us here on Zoom, when we get to the Q&A portion, don't forget to look at the bottom of your screen, hit that QA button, and ask your questions. We'll get to them as Josh is ready. So take it away, Maria.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. And Joshua, we're really excited to have you here today, part of this Zoom Chats series that we're doing. I know we're going to hear from Joshua, who is one of the co-founders and creative director at Rice Creative. They're based out of Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. So I know it's evening there, so good evening to everybody who's joining us from couple time zones ahead, and a good morning for all of those who are joining us from the Detroit or this Central Eastern time zone. So really excited to be able to have you guys hear from Joshua today. We just want to go ahead and thank everybody in advance for joining. Like Dylan mentioned, if you do have questions related to anything that Joshua goes over today in his slides or questions related to the studio, feel free here in Zoom to use that Q&A button, and we will have some dedicated time after the presentation to address any questions. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, who are watching us on Twitter or our Facebook live stream, feel free to go ahead and leave a comment or leave a question in the comments section, and we'll make sure that gets over to Josh. And just want to welcome everyone again, and let us know in the chat section where you're joining us from, whether it's here in the Detroit area, whether it's from Italy, from Shanghai, Australia, wherever you're joining us from. Feel free to leave that in the comments section. And really excited for today's talk. Thank you, Joshua, for being part of this AIG Detroit event. And with that being said, feel free to kick off the introduction and presentation.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Dylan, for inviting me to do this talk this morning, this evening. I'm really excited to be here too. It's always a pleasure to step back from the day-to-day work a bit and reflect and, try to put something together to talk to people about. We definitely have a lot to say about our work over here in Vietnam. And it's always really, really interesting to deliver that message to an audience from wherever you are around the world. My name is Joshua, and I am originally from the United States. I've been living and working in Asia for, I think it's 14 years now. I started my career at Landor Associates, actually in Cincinnati, Ohio. And from Cincinnati, I moved to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And I think I'll touch a little bit on why and what's happened in this. This isn't very long. I'm much more interested in having a dialogue today. It just feels more interesting to me anyhow than looking at some work, older work. I will show some work though. So first of all, excuse the odd format. I've been giving a few of these kind of talks online, and I've been really enjoying this grid I'm using. That's kind of Instagram stories grid. If you don't mind, the whole thing is in that format, and I've just been kind of into it and stuck with it. I titled this one Design It's People Stuff, and it talks a little bit about how design is something that we practice to talk to people, and we do it with people, and it's all about people. So a little bit about Rice. So we are a strategic branding and design studio, and we believe that powerful and compelling design can transform brands give shape to extraordinary stories and make positive and lasting impacts. And sorry I read that to you, but it is a little paragraph that we've crafted over the years, and we kind of finally feel like it says everything we want it to say. We create strategy and design for all kinds of clients, commercial and cultural, from many places around the world, primarily today in Vietnam. So we are based in this little corner of the earth, and it's been just an absolute privilege to be here. It's a place where things are changing rapidly, while there is an incredible, deep and timeless culture that is ever present. And it's a rich kind of mix. It's a situation that for me set up an incredible scenario to be able to be very, very creative in, and to feel a lot of responsibility about, and to deliver what we think is meaningful design. If you're not familiar with our work, I thought I would show just a little bit as a sort of clip, and I can make some comments through this. But again, I'm not here to really talk about our work per se. We do all kinds of things, from small local brands that are coming out to the world. And we also work with big international companies that are finding it difficult to situate themselves in this new and diverse market. We work for NGOs, we work for clients outside of Vietnam, sometimes in Japan or in Europe or in the US, because we have kind of a refreshing and unique point of view, thanks to our diverse team. I realize this is a bit of a visual overload, but again, I just wanted to give sort of a sense of the work that comes out of our studio. And I think what you can gather is it's quite diverse. We're not focusing on any specific sector. We're focusing on if it's an interesting and meaningful kind of job to do. That sort of ends right there. So what we are all about doing is creating conversation through design, through brands. Brands, for better or worse, are kind of the most powerful communicators of our time, in a sense. At least it's a way to reach a lot of people. We like to reach people with extraordinary stories. We like to broadcast extraordinary stories, and we're looking for them. And in one way or another, we hope that the work is delivering something positive, whether it's a huge corporation making a small change for the better, or whether it's, in some cases, we are developing brands for companies that are completely focused on sustainability, or or working for somebody like UNICEF, who's obviously putting all of their focus on making the world a better place for children, something like that. We're always looking for a way that we can use our skills, our creativity to do something good. In some cases we get to work with a really incredible exchange because of the place we're situated in. We've been able to develop this brand called Maru Chocolate, which is an incredible product story from Vietnam, and it's been distributed all over the world, and it's sort of changed a little bit about maybe people's perceptions of kinds of products that come out of Vietnam. In other cases, we've worked recently with Uniqlo and helping them to situate in Vietnam and to have a relevant voice. We work with meaning. We're always making sure that the team and the company at large is feeling as though we're on a good path. We're being challenged. We're challenging our clients back to do something as good as they can, or better. we are really, really inspired by the place we're working in, and it sort of challenges us to always be the most responsible designers we can be. We're trying to make work that has a lasting impact, and we're learning all the time. I mean, these are these words kind of circling around. It's all something that's in our mind all the time as we're working, and we're always kind of making sure we're on like a nice, healthy path with the work that we're doing. So we just try to do good work, basically. And that might end up just being really, really good design work, and that being, you know, satisfactory to everyone on the team. And that might actually be, you know, doing really good work for an organization that's making a big positive change. The inspiration, our inspiration is sort of the key to it all. Like, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you focused? What keeps you striving to do your best? It's always the inspiration. We might find all of the inspiration we need within our clients, within what they're doing. Our clients might remind us of some of our heroes, you know, people that are inventing new things. Like, you know, for example, when Grandmaster Flash invented the turntables, or somebody that's venturing out into new territory to make a discovery, to connect people to new stories. There's all kinds of things that our clients are doing that remind us of some of our heroes, and that can be really inspirational. Something that helps us be our best, you know, to be daring and to challenge the status quo. We like to think of graphic design as, you know, the most efficient way for someone to get the message across. And, you know, this is an example of something we really love. This is just a almost seemingly random piece of graffiti. This picture was taken in 1968. And it says, "Demand the impossible." And it's a message that we really, really love. And it's something that sort of, I go back to, and you know, this is something that I think we do day in and day out. We're sort of demanding the impossible. And sometimes that's the way that change happens. Something that was inspirational from way back, you know, seeing this image way back, and just, this is sort of like almost just the joy of graphic design, just a pure typographic message, a positive message, a message of potential change. You know, everything that we do, whether it's a package design or a poster or, you know, a full brand identity, can hold the DNA to make a change, and that's really inspirational and something we always strive for. At the end of the day, it's all about people. We're talking to people. Sometimes we're just talking to people in our country that we're working in, and sometimes we're talking to people all over the world. We could be talking to millions of people, and we're really lucky to have a really diverse group of people in our team. We have people from all over the world. I think our current team covers 8 nations, and we've had interns from 15 different nations, and we work with clients in Asia and Europe and in the United States. And it sort of really informs and helps the work. It has a very diverse point of view, and you know, we think that's kind of the future of design, to be considering the widest audience possible, and to also be able to welcome in the widest number of minds and voices. And that's the way we like to create our work. We tend to not focus on a certain style, or it's more about the matter at hand, and it oftentimes gets really colored by diverse points of view. This is all, we're all kind of activists in our own way, and as a team, I think we feel as though we're activists for, you know, positive change. And I love this image. This was our old office. We're in a new office now. This was our old office. It's an old modernist building overlooking the Central Market here in Ho Chi Minh City, and this was our holiday card one year, and everyone's sort of talking about making change and positive messages about the future through, you know, really simple graphic design. we like to think of ourselves a little bit of like a mission control, and everyone's sort of like sharing this collective mission of broadcasting extraordinary stories. That's what we're all about, and that's what we want to do day in and day out. And you know, wherever you are working as a designer, there are countless extraordinary stories to tell. We're certainly in a place where we will never run out of inspiring stories to bring to the world. And to us, you know, design is discovering something new and imagining the future and doing that together. We prefer to work as a studio and get a lot of voices around the work if possible. You know, I think designers are designing the future. They're imagining where their client can go. They're imagining the next version of the marketplace where that product or service may be participating. And you know, it's a wonderful thing that we get to do day in and day out, is use our imagination and to use our skills as researchers and archaeologists, if even, to dig up clues and create really amazing stories. So I just wanted to cover a little bit about how we think about design, and I wanted to hopefully field some questions. Certainly much more in the mood to chat than to kind of talk about old work. I think it's definitely a time for reflection for everyone. Yeah, so I'm kind of done monologuing. If I'm able to take some questions.
All right, thank you, Joshua.
Thanks.
So it looks like there's already a few questions in the Q&A. And for those of you that are here in Zoom, feel free to ask questions directed to Joshua, questions related to design, to their studio, maybe some of the things he mentioned just now related to their mission, to sources of inspiration. Feel free to ask that in the Q&A. And for those of you that are listening and watching this on our live stream on other platforms, just leave a comment and we'll get your question over to Josh. So Joshua, feel free to go through the Q&A here. I know Melissa had a question. She said, you know, you mentioned interns from abroad. I'd love to learn more about your recruitment process with interns and whether there have been remote opportunities for internship with Rice.
Sure. So we get a lot of inquiries all the time from everywhere. It's been from everywhere, amazingly, to take internships. And, you know, essentially, I think our email is rice@rice-creative.com. If I'm wrong, we'll figure it out later. Basically, just, you know, send us a little note and some work. It really helps to see a little bit of work, to see your level. And we have never had an intern that did not work in the studio with us. However, always open to new ideas. We've definitely worked with designers that are not in the studio with us. So it's possible. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Joshua. And then also there was just a comment here from Maria Krylova. She says, just want to say I love your work. So just some feedback to you.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Okay, and then there was another question here. It says, what are your very first steps in the branding process?
It's a good question. It's simple, but it's really good. Well, I mean, I could answer that in kind of like an even more detailed way, I guess. It starts by making sure that it's kind of a good fit. So we get inquiries a lot, and we usually send back a questionnaire to just sort of get a sense of what the client might have in mind. And there's some simple questions just to make sure that they have some ducks in a row. You know, it's kind of, sometimes we get some questions like, hey, can you do a logo for me? And, you know, it's typically not, that's not going to really like solve somebody's issue or, you know, help somebody that much. So it's more like, you know, what is your business all about? And, you know, kind of see if, you know, if they're just getting started, it's good to know if they have a business plan. And we like to really like be quite informed before we even start to make a proposal. And I'm not explaining that super well, but that's kind of the first step. The next step is creating a proposal, like a scope of work. And that's actually where the strategy begins. We need to know quite a lot. You know, we have kind of like our full package identity service, I guess you could say, and most of that would apply to many kinds of new companies where we're going to embark on a lot of research, and then we're going to take a look at that research and start building strategy, and then eventually get into design. But you know, the first step is just kind of have a conversation and see where this company or where this person is, and then start to build a scope of work, a proposal based on, you know, your best assessment of what they kind of need. And you know, you can do that back and forth with them. Like, I might say, you know, I think you just need some research and some strategy, maybe a bit of brand architecture first. Let's do that first before we start getting into design. Sometimes it goes like that. So I hope that was a decent answer. It's never the same way twice.
No, that sounds, it's a great answer. And yeah, definitely asking those questions up front just to make sure there's alignment and expectations met, right? So no, makes sense. And then there's also a couple more questions here. So one of the questions someone wanted to know is, what font do you use in showcasing the slides? Thank you so much.
I don't mind answering that. I'm a typeface geek. This is a custom cut of typeface called Suisse from a type foundry. I think they're in Switzerland, and we are kind of going through a little refresh of our own identity, and we approached them to rework 3 weights of this typeface for Vietnamese. So we have a semi-bold, which is here. There's actually the mono in the footer, and let's see. I'm only using those 2. And we have a medium, and they're all made especially for us with Vietnamese characters. Yeah.
And you said the name is, how do you spell it?
Suisse, Suisse.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. And then there was also a question here from Daniel Cascardo. He says, how is the coronavirus affecting your business?
Yeah. Okay. I think if I could use the word lucky, I'm not sure that's a word I use that often, but I think we're pretty lucky. So Vietnam is a country that has somehow been able to manage the situation very, very well. They were very, very quick to act, and I think they had a little bit of practice before. There were some virus scares previously. We had SARS and things like that, and they were pretty well equipped. Schools were closed very, very early, and a lot of measures were taken, and there have been no new cases here for quite a long time, like over 50 days, and there were no deaths. The impact in our country that we're working in right now was very minimal. And that coupled with the fact that the economy is really strong, we're in pretty good shape compared to other places. We got quite lucky. Things did slow down. People obviously became very, very cautious. We had a lot of contracts out that people were saying, we're going to wait to sign on this. And we sort of, we all, let's see, in I think late January, we decided to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we were working from home for 2 months. And we just came back, a few weeks ago, back to normal. So everything was not as bad as it could have been here. I don't know if they want to get more specific about the question, but we're.
Well, thank God for that. That you guys have been okay, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are able to somewhat get back to normal now.
I think it's really rare right now in the world, and we feel very, very lucky. It's a rare thing. I mean, like a month ago, I was able to, I was out at dinner with friends, and we all felt like, gosh, this is kind of normal, but it's so abnormal in the world right now. It's strange.
Yeah, definitely. The other question that's here, it's from an anonymous person that put in a question. They said, do you have any advice for aspiring creatives, designers who might not have a graphic design focused background in how to grow their skills and navigate their career in the industry?
Sure. It's an industry that requires all kinds of skills and all kinds of minds. We're 25 people at our studio, and I think we have 9 designers. It's a huge team effort. We have strategists, we have producers, we have, of course, finance and HR, and these are all individuals that want to be here and want to be involved in the projects we're doing, because they think it's exciting, they think it's cool, they think it's interesting, they think it's meaningful. But most of them do not practice graphic design. We need lawyers, we need all kinds of people to do this job well. So there's plenty of opportunity.
All right, thank you, Joshua. And then there's a question here from Emily. She wants to know, could you speak a bit more about your work on the Maru project? As a longtime fan of your work, I'm really interested in understanding how the process developed from logo identity to packaging, and then ultimately to designing the in-store experience. That's actually a really great question.
That's a really great question, and I think it would also be a whole talk in itself. I really appreciate that question. Let me try to keep that manageable and not rant too much. Well, they were actually our first client, so that was 9 years ago that we met and started working on the Maru project. We met 2 individuals who were making chocolate in a home kitchen, and they had discovered sources for cacao around southern Vietnam. It's a crop that grows here. It hasn't been a crop that has been a very important crop for Vietnam. It's usually grown in and among other things. And they started kind of collecting cacao that had been fermented and dried by the farmers and started making chocolate. And they just realized they thought it was incredible. They thought it was very, very good. And we met and we tried it, and it was very, very, very good, very distinctive, something special. And it was all one species of cacao, but depending on the different farms they were sourcing from, there was a different taste. And we realized that this was a story of terroir. This was like how the land was, and the farming, and climate, and the altitude was affecting the flavors. And it was just like, for us, we had just embarked on creating rice, and it was exactly what we wanted to do. We were just coming out of advertising, and we were a little disillusioned with that, and we were seeking something just like this. And we went on a journey with them to try to create a story, well, to encapsulate the story that was right in front of us in a way that would capture people's imagination. No one had ever really heard from Vietnam in terms of chocolate, or in terms of gourmet chocolate. So we definitely had a challenge on our hands. And it was, just a lot of work. I think it took us around 9 months until we kind of had something going on that we thought would work. What people could sort of absorb what we thought was so crucial about the story through a package design, because that's really all we had in the beginning. It was only going to be a package design for a while. That's all there was money for. That's all that made sense. And we just put everything into that package design, and we used it as a message to sort of send out to the world. We sort of posted it on some design blogs, and it caught fire through design blogs. So through that, the company was actually getting orders from the US and Europe, I believe, for chocolate they had never even tasted yet. So obviously we had a happy client, and we thought we had done a pretty good job. And then fast forward a bit, it did very well as an export product, but it sort of left an empty space in everyone's heart, because the product wasn't being bought that much or enjoyed here in Vietnam, and this didn't seem right. So the client embarked on this next adventure to open cafes here in Vietnam, and we worked 100% on that. Everything from displays to the furniture to the interior branding, signage, so many things. And we did work with a really great local architecture company called HTAP, who were very helpful in bringing a lot of those ideas to life. And everyone was concerned that this place would be full of tourists or expats that live here. But over time, it actually was filled with a lot of young, local Vietnamese people who were excited about the product and excited to get involved and try it. And now they have 3 cafes, and they're doing really well. And it's become a really, really important part of their business. And the story goes on. We, sort of the things that we were able to emulate through that initial package design kind of kept unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And, 9 years later, there's been so much work done. It's a very rich brand. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also how I first came across your work. I think a number of years ago. I think it was on Behance. Was through that, through the, Maru packaging design. It's gorgeous, and I know I even show it to my. I still use it as an example for for great design for my classroom and for my students. Even how you guys use the different colors of the cacao pods that inspired. I mean, there's so many different elements, but yeah, just really much respect for your work. And I think that's what, for me at least, got me aware of what you guys are doing. So thank you,
Thanks,
Emily, for
Maria.
that question. A couple other questions here. I know we're now in the Q&A session. Are you good to stay on for maybe another 10, 15 minutes, Joshua?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, perfect. All right, so there's another question here that says, could you please suggest some quality sources for branding inspiration that Rice usually visits? Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm not saying we don't, because I'm sure we do, but we don't encourage visiting branding inspiration to inspire ourselves for our projects. And the reason we don't, it's probably obvious, we want to focus on the inspiration that's within the project and maybe our own memories and our own sort of imaginations, and sort of think it'll help us create something a little bit more unique and fresh. Now, everyone looks at branding inspiration sites, and they're great. I mean, I love them. I do like the brand identity, and there's another one, visual.it. Of course, we're looking around. But I guess I steered that question more towards, do we use branding inspiration to inspire our branding? And it's really something we actively avoid. Yeah. So I think what I look at, I like to look at art. I like to look at history and things like that.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I think all too often we're trying to almost and not talking about you or myself, I'm saying a lot of times we let those outside influences of other design work
Yeah.
almost use it as a crutch to go to. So I think what you brought up is very important, is try not to go to other designers or things like that. I mean, I think it's good to know what's out there
Yeah.
when you're doing your research, but a great point is try to look everywhere else except at what's already been done.
Yeah, I'm very lucky because I feel like I'm getting a little older, which I'm happy about. I'm 38 years old. I don't know if that's older or not. I've surrounded myself with young designers. Like, our team is, they're all younger than me, and they're tapped into things that are, really exciting and refreshing for me to see. So I get all of that from them. And at the same time, we're kind of building a library in our studio. It's pretty big, and it's, all about the books. And I'm really cognizant of the fact that when I sit down with a book, I just get a far richer feedback. I discover things that I wasn't looking for, that it always sort of hits the mark. It's better for me than, searching around online. And yeah, it's probably like an old guy comment, but books are books, and it's,
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that, Joshua. Yeah, thank you. There's a couple other questions here, 4 more questions. One question here, could you share about how to overcome project delays or long feedbacks from the client, which we know it will affect the project timeline?
Hmm. I don't know. We try to more and more. I think we're trying to meet our clients in person as much as possible, and it's important to try to keep the momentum going, keep everyone excited. Sometimes our clients won't feedback for a long time. You know, they get sidetracked, they get busy, and it does affect things. You kind of lose a little bit of steam because you end up moving on to other things. Like if I'm rolling away on a project and then nothing really happens for a couple weeks, I'm on to other things, and then I have to kind of steer myself back into it. So I'm not sure, you know, how you can avoid that. One thing that is good to do in the studio is sort of keep the work up, keep the work in your environment, in your site. We use a lot of pin boards in our studio, and I know that my desk has 3 pin boards next to it of a project that has been delayed for a month, but I'm looking at it every day, and it's kind of stewing and brewing. So, you know, what you can do, that's one little proactive thing, is to sort of keep it in sight. Other projects I'm working on are decks that I'm building in InDesign, and you know, if they're not open, they're not open, and I don't see them. Kind of go out of mind. Yeah, I don't know. Pester your client. Let them know you need answers. You're excited. You know, they can't fault you for chasing them. They should be lucky that it's you chasing them and not the other way around.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. And then 3 other questions here. So one question here says, despite design being rather universal in quotes, do you wrestle between the pull of design trends in the West and local Southeast Asian traits?
Okay, I'm just reading that again.
So it says, despite design being rather universal, do you wrestle between the pull of design trends in the West and local Southeast Asian traits?
Well, I think design being universal is like kind of impossible. It's a very optimistic, utopian kind of idea. You know, I think at our studio, we are kind of modernist. We're pretty minimal. We're trying to achieve a clarity of message while delivering something that has the unmistakable ingredients of that specific client and situation. And we're just trying to do the best job we can to convey the story at hand. We're not looking at trends unless, you know, it's a fashion brand. I think fashion brands are very cognizant of trends and reacting to them, and I think that's interesting. I think that's part of that industry. We just worked on a local fashion brand, and the output was, I guess you would call trendy, although I think that design will last a long time. And I think that one was looking all over the place in terms of global influence. And although it's a Vietnamese company, you know, all gets sort of like mixed and remixed and reworked in a way that's going to work for that client. It's kind of I don't know, it's kind of a tricky question. I hope what I'm talking about makes a little bit of sense.
Well, I think it also, it draws back to what you mentioned too with the inspiration, right? Because like you mentioned, there's universal design. I mean, you have to design based on, you know, the client at hand, understanding them, understanding what they're trying to do, understanding the demographics, the industry, all these other components that go into it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of
Yeah.
that plays, a significant part. So I think what you mentioned, yeah, pretty much, I think it kind of covers that in a sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think, it's always a very rich tapestry. And then we try to present it in the simplest way.
Mm.
Most of the work that we're doing, at least for the first couple months, is writing. We're just kind of like writing down the essence of that brand and distilling it and sort of making sure that the writing all makes sense to us and the client, and in a way that we think our audience will get. And once you're at that point of that being sort of wrapped up, the design can come out fairly easily. And we're not really thinking at that point about influence. I don't know. It's sort of like it's all in that writing, and then we're designing towards that writing. That's the way we look at it.
Okay. Yeah, great point to really get to capture the essence of that brand you're working with, which ultimately, like you mentioned, is going to drive the direction of the project. So yeah, great advice. And then there's just two other questions here, Joshua. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name of this brand. Baimin, is that correct? Baemin?
Yeah, Bayman.
Oh, Baimin. Okay, so Baimin Vietnam is a very new food delivery app. There are some strong competitors in the same industry with Baimin. Could you please explain a little about the problems that Rice meet up when working for Baimin and the overall solutions?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really exciting company here. I'm trying to think of what's comparable in America. I guess like Uber Eats or something like that. But that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they are on motorbike, and they have a very distinctive uniform, all of which we designed. It's a really fun project. The company comes from Korea, and they're really popular in Korea. It's actually like quite an influential brand in Korea because they have a really fun and interesting tone of voice, and they do a lot of super creative stuff. They create all kinds of products that are fun. They've done their own magazine, and it's really rich what they're doing in Korea. And they've come into this market, and we're helping them develop and position themselves among the competition. And there are a fair number of competitors here in Vietnam for food delivery. I'm trying to rehash the question. Problems we met up with. Well, problems, and problem is not a negative word. Problem is something to solve. Plenty of great problems. So one of which is they had a very distinctive identity in Korea, which is based around their typeface, which of course in Korea is a Korean, is Korean characters. And we here in Vietnam use a Latin based language in terms of characters. And we went through a really incredible process of developing a typeface for them that's Vietnamese, that carries the same characteristic as the Korean characters. It was super interesting. We had people, Korean citizens here helping us to point out the distinctive points of that Korean typeface and helped us translate that into this new typeface, which is Latin characters, Vietnamese language. We worked with a type designer who is British, but based in Taipei. His name is Kia. I'm struggling to remember his last name, but it's on our documentation about that project. And we essentially developed this typeface, and we use it in a very bold way and brought in a version of the color that they carried from Korea. And in there, we have this new Vietnamese identity for this company called Baemin. And it's really, really fun, really loud, but really well done. So I think it's been successful. There's been all kinds of good problems with that project. We also do all of our own production here. And in this case, that meant producing thousands and thousands and thousands of aqua green bomber jackets for the riders to wear. And those had to be done, with utmost care and quality. And our production team here oversaw that for the client and made sure that all went really well. Of course, it was loaded with problems. You need to use color fast, dyes, fabric. This is a custom color. And we had a fashion designer designing the garments to make sure that, they were going to be versatile for the riders and work across different sizes. I mean, this is quite, if you talk about problems, that's a really good one. There's all kinds of issues to work out. The logo runs down each sleeve of the bomber jacket, and it's just the huge logo type for Baemin, and it's printed in a reflective kind of material, so it glows at night. And it adds a safety aspect for these drivers as they're driving around town at night. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. That's been an incredible project and very problematic.
Well, beautiful work on it. I mean, this is another really great project. I know I've admired that you guys have done, and also, again, you're going into, like you mentioned, into fashion, so other aspects of design, right? To really think about all those different touch points in this specific brand. So I don't know, I really love the fact that you guys oversee all those different aspects. So whether it's, a space, whether it's something that the drivers have to wear, just making sure that there's that consistency. And like you said, it translates also with maybe their tone and voice in a sense. So yeah, beautiful work, really nice.
Thanks, Maria. I mean, that's always been really important to us to kind of do everything, just to make sure it's all done really well and it's consistent. We're always going the extra mile. Yeah.
All right, and then there's just one other question here. It says, could you share some of the questions that you tend to ask the client on the first meeting?
Okay, yeah, I thought I might get that question because I didn't do a great job explaining it. I want to search up the questionnaire. I'm not sure if that's something I should do. Let's see. If you give me maybe 3 seconds.
Yeah, no worries. And for those of you that are tuning in right now, we want to just thank you for staying on. Thank you for asking these questions to Joshua. We really appreciate the support that you guys are showing, not only for today's talk, but just know that this Zoom chat series that we're doing through AIGA Detroit is something that we're hosting 4 times a week. So today is the kickoff for this week 10 of our Zoom chat series. And we're going to be hosting these every week through the end of the month. So we have another 2 weeks left. Well, 2.5 actually, for the end of this series. And we're hoping to start this back up again. But for the time being, we're going to have this go through the end of June. So just keep up to date on our social media pages and on our website for upcoming talks this week. We're going to have a branding talk on Wednesday. There'll be an interactive with the audience talk with Michael Jager from the Solidarity of Unbridled Labor, a branding studio out of Vermont. And then on Friday, we'll be speaking with a design and architecture studio out of Monterrey, Mexico. So definitely stay tuned to that. And Joshua, whenever you're ready, feel free to.
Yeah. Okay, so I couldn't quite dig it up. However, I think the reason why it's not in my memory is because they're quite dry questions. It's essentially how can we help you? How can branding and design help your business or operation? What is your audience? What is your I think it starts with like, give us a brief description of what you're doing, obviously. How would you encapsulate the mission of this? What is your vision? What do you plan to do with it? Where do you want it to be in 5, 10 years? So, we want to get a sense of what we can actually help them with. We want to share a goal together. It goes on, if it helps, I could probably just dig it up after this and send it. I don't know if there's a resource.
We could email it out to everybody that attended.
Sure. Yeah. I'll definitely send it. It's quite dry, but we have worked through it over the years to make sure it kind of like screens out maybe less opportunistic relationships. I don't know how that sounds, but it's kind of designed to make sure that we're like going to find like somebody that we can work on something with.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I will send that over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Joshua. And then I know we're already at time, but could you talk maybe a little bit about how you started Rice Creative? Like, I know you said you're originally from the Cincinnati area. How did you get to Vietnam? How did you start your design studio? And maybe just talk maybe a brief summary of that or what that looked like.
Okay. Well, let's see. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I ended up as a kid moving to Cincinnati. My parents are in Columbus, Ohio now, and I started working. While I was still in school, I interned at Landor Associates in Cincinnati, and I learned a great deal there. I had some great leadership around me. Senior designer named Ramin Aslami, he taught me things that I didn't learn in school, like strategy and brand architecture and all of these super important things that helped me understand the thing that I was feeling all along, which is more like design is like this incredible tool, not this facade we put on things, or not this way we use to make things look good. It's this tool to deeply help companies, overcome challenges and all of these things. And I worked at Landor for a little while, and I knew that I wanted to see the world. I wasn't going to stay there forever. I didn't even stay there that long. I think it was a year and then plus the internship, a year and some. I came to Vietnam because I knew some people here. I wanted to see how I could get involved in creativity in this part of the world. I looked at it as like kind of my place to embark traveling from. I was very interested, and I could have gone somewhere else after. It was just a place to begin, to come and see some friends. A woman I went to school with, who was originally from Vietnam. She was moving back, and one of my friends was moving with her because they were going to get married. I came to see them, and I was also like very open to look for work. You know, maybe I could just take some projects here and there, challenge myself, see how that would go. And I ended up getting a really nice offer to work for an advertising agency here in Ho Chi Minh City. And I just took the opportunity. I saw it as a really nice way to quickly get involved in the creative industry here, which was very small at the time, and start, you know, practicing what I'd learned in a very new and challenging environment. And they gave me a lot of really great opportunities to sort of eventually start even the branding department of this agency, because they knew that's where I came from and they knew that's where my passions were. At the time, it was really only advertising agencies here. But I did learn a lot about advertising as an art director, did a lot of TV commercials and things like that. And eventually met my current business partner, founding partner, Bryce Chian DeLeo. He came to work at this agency as an intern, and then, you know, did a really good job. Went back, finished school, came back to the agency, and we formed a branding division of this advertising agency. And we built a team, and kind of realized that we really liked how that was going, but we weren't in charge of it. And we weren't going to be able to quite do work the way we thought we could, which was, you know, maybe they wouldn't have accepted Maru Chocolate as a client because they didn't have any money, something like that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we're like, we're gonna have to just do this on our own. We want to give back. You know, we want to do the most interesting things we possibly can. We were very ambitious about it. And that was in 2011, we started Rice. Mm-hmm. And our first projects were, you know, the Maru Chocolate brand, and a book for an architecture studio, local architecture studio, and it just kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I mean, I really respect the journey that you took from, you know, from Landor, and then kind of taking a leap of faith and starting up your own studio, and really respect the work that Rice is putting out, that I know you and your team, I know there's a whole group of people that are coming together to create some really smart design solutions. So I know it inspires me. I know people that are tuned in right now, I know it's inspirational to them as well. And Joshua, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing those insights with us. And also, I love the Instagram story kind of format. I think it's different in a good way. Like, I think I don't know, there's something familiar about it. We're always on a screen anyway, whether we're, you know, on our phone or watching on our desktop computer. So yeah, really, I like the vertical format that you used. But with that being said, I appreciate your time, Joshua. Thank you for taking time to answer all of these questions as well. And thank you for everyone who submitted questions, for those of you who have tuned in today. I know that I definitely have a lot of takeaways anytime I hear from, you know, any of the creatives that we have as guests. And I know today especially, I appreciate what you shared with our AIG community. And being a fellow Midwesterner, it's always good to have I don't know, these roots that connect us, even though you're halfway around the world. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Agreed.
thank you, Joshua.
Thank you so much, Maria. It was a real pleasure to be asked to join, and I love doing this. I mean, part of the reason why I started Studio is because I think I love to interact with people and talk to them about design and good ideas. And this was a great chance. And anytime, please let me know if I can come back.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joshua.
Have a
And
nice day.
okay, thank you. I was going to say good night because I know it's already evening.
Yeah.
So good night to everybody who's tuning in, who might be, 10, 12 hours ahead, and have a good rest of your day for those of you that where it's still morning. So thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.